Welcome back to Lockdown Licks with more answers to your questions. And the next question we've got is from Michael Connolly, and it's to do with chart reading. Michael's asking particularly about counting, being numbers of bars, sections, and charts. And I like to avoid that as much as I possibly can. Because if I'm really focusing on counting bars and beats, that's taking some of my attention away from what's going on in the music. But it's not always possible to do that. I mean, if I look at a chart and it's well laid out and the form is clear, I can see like it's 32 bar sequence or 12 bar sequence, or like, you know, can see like 8 bar sections or whatever. That makes it really, really easy to deal with. But of course, that's not always the case. You'll sometimes get unusual phrases, 5 bars, and what have you. And what I'll do with something like that is I'll listen through it when we're rehearsing it and try to ascertain whether it's like 3 bars and 2 bars, or is it 4 bars and like a 1 bar tag, and I'll just notate that over the top, which helps me stay in place. Also, when you get really, really unusual phrase lengths, and I remember doing on a BBC broadcast the Duke Ellington Nutcracker Suite a few years ago, and you just got bars and bars of repeats, and there's like 11 bars and 14 bars. What I actually did was I borrowed the score and I took like some horn cues and penciled them in over the bars so I could stay in the right place. It really minimizes the risk of making mistakes. And now where reading phrases is concerned, I think one of the most common mistakes is that us drummers tend to treat bar lines as though they're like full stops in like written English, for example. So you read to the end of a bar, subconsciously stop and start again. And that's really not the best way to do it. You've got to look at where phrases begin and end. And if you think about how horn players play their phrases and what their charts look like, they'll often have like phrasing marks over the top of a group of notes, which could be several bars in duration. The reason being is that they want some kind of indication as to where they're going to breathe. Because if you've got a horn section and they're all breathing in different places in the music, it's going to sound pretty rubbish. And what we have to do sometimes with written phrases is think like horn players and look at where it begins and ends. It might be a bar and a half, it might be 3 bars, it might be longer, and read it as a single entity. And remember, it's really important, don't make that subconscious stop whenever you see a bar line. And there'll be more about reading in future editions.